without taking much of our time again, I would like us to begin this session, and I want to welcome Solomon Jeremiah. Solomon, you can have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. The last week, we started a topic that we have to finish today. And today is more like the interactive section, but there are some stuffs that I need to try to show you so you can get a better understanding of what we've been talking about, right? I would share my screen, and when I share my screen, I will just turn up my machine so we can just look at what I have, because we'll be trying to treat a few things in today's interactive section. So one of the things we'll be doing is we'll try to set up our Active Directory domain services, and when we set that up, we'll be using the .local, right? The reason we are doing that is because we want to answer, give answer to the question someone asked in the previous training. So that's why I will be using the .local, and I'll also show you how to set that up. And I'll be running some scripts. So what I will do, I'll try to make sure I can explain partial, at least for a beginner, then you can start finding your way around it. So that's what I would try to see how to cover today. And I'll try as much as possible to use the time that we have already specified for this event. So let me just jump in straight and start sharing my screen now. Okay, so I guess everybody should be able to see my screen now, right? If you can't see my screen, just let me know. So, okay, I guess everyone is seeing my screen. So the last time I used another server, right? And the reason I was using that server because it was already set up for the routable domain. So, and I just did a test where I could create users with different users with the same user account, but they have different password. One was on-prem and the other one was on cloud. So this is my server that I just created, and there's nothing on the server than just what you're seeing. We can see the server manager here, and this is just the normal server, and this is also, if we look at this, oh, not that. If we look at this now, we would see, okay, I'm just wondering why this RAM is small. I didn't notice. So we can see this is Windows Server 2019. So I think probably this is a mistake I did, but I will try to use it. So if you look at this server now, when we come to Server Manager, for us to set up our Active Directory domain service, right, we need to install it as a role in our Server Manager. So when we come to our Server Manager, we just need to click on Add Role. And once I click on that, I would next, I'll leave this here, I would next, I'll go next, and then I can look for the role here to select. So if you remember what we're talking about, that has to do with on-prem, right? This was the name we're talking of. So if you look at this name, right? I selected it and it gave me this option to add features. So I will add the features. I selected add, and then I'll just go next. I would not add any other stuff here, so I'll just go next. It's already telling us about this. We should learn more about the Azure Active Directory and the Active Directory Connect, right? We'll talk about this. This is basically how we are going to sync our users to the cloud. So I'll go next and I will install. So it should prompt me to restart, but let me just install this. So once this installation is done, we will then add the .local domain. So we see exactly how we are going to switch to another routable domain. And then if we choose to sync these users to the cloud, we can easily sync them with the routable domain. So before I start typing those commands, I'll just try to go through PowerShell also so we can understand exactly what is happening with PowerShell. So I would close this, and now that I'm done, the next thing you will see, there's this notification here, this caution sign. It wasn't there before. So when I click on it, the next option I'll be getting is for me to promote this to a domain controller, promote the server to a domain controller. So for me to promote that, I'll click on it, right? So when we click on this, at this point, we need to put in our domain, right? So one thing I just saw here that I feel maybe I will just see if maybe we can have a time to talk about forest, right? And domains and all of that, right? So we don't spend time. That's one other thing I feel we should probably talk about, because now you will see domain and you're probably seeing forest, right? So we have forestry and all of that. So I don't want to take what we want to do today. So what I will just do, right? I will be adding my domain directly to this particular DC. So what is my domain going to be? Let me use the ABC of cloud, right? And then I will use .local. So I'm using the .local, and let's go next. So I'm going to give this a password, right? And let me just give it a password at this point. So this password is what I would need if I need to recover this my DC. So after putting this, I will just go next and then next. And let's just wait. It will probably show me my net BIOS. So it is giving me my net BIOS. I guess this was longer than the normal stuff. So I'll just remove this. So this net BIOS is also important when you want to log into a domain join computer. You would need to put this and put a backward slash. So and it has a maximum character of 15. Yeah, I think it should be 15, but we can always confirm that. So if it is longer than the normal this thing, it would take some off also. That's what it will do. It will just take some off. So I'm just going to leave this like this for my net BIOS, and then I will just set this up. So I'm just basically setting up the Active Directory. Oh, already in use. Okay, I understand what was happening. Let me go back. So I will just put that one. So I hope, okay, let me just go next because it should not be what I'm thinking. Okay.
I
Let's
guess
go.
they're on the same network. You have an
Yes,
AV of cloud.
yeah,
Yeah, so you are using the
exactly.
same NIC. I mean, the same network
Exactly.
for them. Yeah.
Exactly. That's and it's actually reading. So what I'll just do now, let me
Maybe you create a new
uh,
switch for this
yeah,
particular one before you
yeah.
go on.
What I want to do, let me turn this off first of all, because I made it my DNS server. So it's probably sending an IP to this guy.
Yeah,
So
and it
let
can
me
come then there'll be a conflict at the end of the day.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna I'm turning that guy off. Okay, let me see if it will go now. But if it doesn't go, I'll just go and create a V switch. Let me just see something. If he's going to see it. Okay. Yeah. So it was actually getting. So it would have been. It's just what was actually happening is I have a network, right? And when I'm creating like a virtual machine, you can assign IPs to your virtual machines that you're creating. You will create a virtual network card. So I have two networks coming into my computer, and I have one for virtual networks. The router is assigned to virtual network. So I already created a server, and I made that server my DNS server, and DHCP is controlled by that server. So this other server trying to come up, it won't want to override the net BIOS of the other one because it can actually see that other server. So why it is actually good when they're on the same network is just simply based on what we are talking about. We can control devices on the same network. So you can see it's already seen the other device. So it will be easier for me to just carry the server and add it to the other one. I can join them together. So if we still have time, maybe as we are doing other stuff, I'll just show you how you can join your personal device to your server. So I will just go next. At least I've been able to pass that level. So let's see what would happen next. Okay, so that was successful. And let's
Okay, Solomon, so let me help you
so
buttress on some important points that
okay,
they need to note. Okay. All right. So ideally, when you are trying to promote a system to a domain controller, you saw that it started with defining the role. Normally, when you bring up a Windows Server environment, you want to define what kind of role that it's going to do. So you remember what your server is. Your server is like your back end that disseminates information, and then you have the client, which is also going to be what receiving information. Now you've put out a Windows server and you're defining the role to be what a domain controller. And remember from 2 weeks ago, what this ADDS role is actually saying is that this is our identity provider on the network. This is the server that is going to be responsible for authenticating, for authorizing, and as well auditing people on the network. So one of the key things you need to bear in mind when you're putting all of this as part of best practice is in a lab environment that Solomon is doing right now, it is quite okay that he did not change the name. He allowed the name to be, but in a production environment, you would definitely want to rename the server apart from the default name. So those are the kind of checklists you will put. Again, you will want to do what? Assign an IP address to it. So if right now this server is getting a DHCP, the risk is that at the end of the day, DHCP IP addresses will be changing. So you may have issues about disconnectivity on the network because you need to assign as part of your DNS. Remember, it is not just a domain controller, it is also a DNS server. And your client machines will also have what? IP address of your DNS server. So if it is assigned the DHCP, which is not the best practice, it means that your clients will not be able to do what? To speak to your domain controller on the network. And what this means is that things like name resolution, changing name to IP. Remember what your server, what computers understand is what? The bits, the 1 and the 0. So at the end of the day, it gets that name and it converts it to what? IP address, which at the end of the day is still going to be 1 and 0 that your computer will understand. So at the end, so when you're doing this, one of the checklists is one, ensure that apart from installing your operating system, ensure that you change the name, ensure that it has a static IP address as the IP address in your network IP settings, which is very important. So I just said I should point out that. Solomon, you can go on.
Okay, thank you. So this server is coming up now. So instead of us waiting for the server, maybe I should just start talking about PowerShell with everyone. So based on what we've heard right now, you understand that changing your server name is very important, right? Okay, let me log in here. So let me just log in real quick to confirm everything is fine. So the name case sensitive is not actually case sensitive. So I hope I spelled that right. So let me try the password. Okay, so changing your server name is one of the first things you should do. You don't want to be having this kind of name for your server. This is not a good name. You have to rename your server. Then your IP, you have to go to your IP and actually give it a static IP, because if they are communicating based on IPs. Your computer, every computer on the internet, whatsoever you're using now to communicate in this meeting, has an IP, and that's what you can use to recognize that device on the internet. The same way your server has would need an IP, and that's what other devices will be using to recognize your server on the network. So that's for the naming and IP. So lucky us, we have this back now. So now that this is back, if I come to tools here, this tools has like basically most of the stuff you need to work with. I would have shown you something earlier, which I missed, right? I wanted to come here first so that you see that this wasn't here at first. So it's after we added the role for the Active Directory domain services, then we have this. So with this now, we can now create our users, computers, and we have some admins and all of that. So if you look at this list here, you see they look like folders. These are like folders and they're like directory. Let me just, so if I click on this, I have users inside of this, and you see there are more also like containers holding objects inside of them. So if you look at this, this is the domain controller. You see it's holding a computer here. It's telling us that this object is a computer. So we have OUs, right, in terms of when we are talking about the Active Directory. So what OUs they do for us, they are like containers, and they call them, the right name is actually organizational units. They are like containers, and you can use them to arrange how your directory should look. So think about you having a computer and you have folders in your computer. You know, you can choose to create a folder inside of a folder. Let's just use an example. I probably have movies, right? And if I have movies, I can create a movie folder and just put my movies in there, right? But what if I want to make things more easier for me? I open my movies folder and then I create action movies, cartoons. So you see, I've tried to make things easier for me, and I can choose to add stuffs where they actually belong inside the parent folder. So OUs, they are like containers. To see them as containers, see them as folder. They are used to hold objects and hold other OUs also. So if we come here, we can actually create a new OU. So we'll create users, but I just want to create OUs because of what we will be doing, so that you see how the OU is coming about. So if you want to create OU, right? If I click on new year, I should see the OU. So you can see I can create users and all other stuff. We have new year and we have icons here. These icons, you can use them to do other stuff. Create user, create groups and all. You can refresh. We have other stuffs at the top here. So, but what I want to do first of all, I want to create OU, and I will go here and you'll see I have new organizational unit. And when I want to create one, I will just give this, let me just look for a name for it. Let's say tech. So I'm trying to use something. So it might be your tech department in your organization. You want tech users to be in this particular OU. You want their computers, everything. You just want to keep them in this particular OU. So this is protect container from accidental deletion. I ticked that, yeah, so you don't just mistakenly delete it. So I've created a new OU, and the difference between this OU and this other one, you see it has like a smaller folder inside of it. So if you come and you see this, you know, okay, this is an OU. So now that I've created this OU, right, I'm going to go new. Now I created the OU from here, right? New OU. So if I come here now, I can create a new OU, but now it's going to be inside the first OU I created. So now in tech, I need to put users here. My caps lock. So users. So this will be where I will be creating users in this OU. So the next OU I want to create is sorry, not the next OU I want to create, right? Is computers. So if I'm joining any computer to this server and it has to do with users that are in tech, this is where this computer should be sitting, right? So we have this now, we have this. So before I start showing you PowerShells and other stuff, right, I can just create a new user real quick. I can click here and you can see I'm creating this user directly on this OU. I can go here and probably say, okay, let me just create the user here, right? Let's leave this OU. So I'll just come here and say, I will still use the first person's name. So I would create Ario, and the last name will be the next username. Yeah, so I'm able to create this user now. So what do we want the user logon name to be? I can choose to use, what will I use? I would use this second name. So I'm using the second name as the user logon name. Then I will create a password for this user. I hope I have a strong password. Oh, I just typed what I did not remember. I was just typing randomly. I forgot I have to confirm it. Okay, so let me open a notepad and just type this password and dump it there. So sorry, this is not, let me do this. So I'll open a notepad and I'm going to just type this password. I hope it is strong enough. So this is the password I'll be using for this user. So let me come here and paste it. So user, I don't need this now, but best practice, if you're working in an organization, you as an IT person, you don't need to have the person's password. So this should be the default password, right? And then you send it to the user. So for password never expires, I can choose to tick it. We have options here. So I can still create this user as a disabled account, right? And I can enable the user. So I'm just using the interface to create the user. So, but before I go, right, you should see some stuff just in case you start working with PowerShell. You can say I give this user the first name, the last name, then the full name, right? And the next thing I give this user is user logon name, right? And you can see the net BIOS showing here. So if the user wants to log into their computer, they can always use this net BIOS. So I went on to next and we have options here, and the option is user must change password at next logon, user cannot change password, password never expire, and account disabled. Why I'm showing you this is because when we are using PowerShell, we can actually do all of this if we want to do it with PowerShell. So I'll click on finish. So this was easy for me to create this user, and yeah, I can choose to move this user, and then my user is no longer, my user is here. So that's if probably we have the user somewhere else and we need to move them to another OU. And you know, in organization, people change departments. So if probably you already have somebody in tech and the person is moving to manager, is it business, right? You can choose to move the person to the next OU. So that's for creating users and all of that. So the next thing we would be doing together now is we'll be using PowerShell to add what we'll be doing, we'll be adding a new domain name, and not just adding the domain name. We would also create users, and then we'll create random users with the .local, because now if you look at this user now, you should see that this user should have .local, right? So we want to create multiple users and see how we can convert their .local domain to a routable domain that we are going to select. So first of all, before we do this, let's look at what PowerShell is all about. I want to just explain PowerShell with the best way I can explain PowerShell. So let me just see if I can pull up just this. What I want to pull up is just the document. Let me pull this up. Yeah, so this document is actually from Microsoft. So yeah, so this is the document here. So what is PowerShell? So what is PowerShell, right? From Microsoft's website, the definition is PowerShell is a cross-platform task automation solution made up of a command line shell, a scripting language, and a configuration management framework. So this is the definition, right? We've heard the definition. So what exactly is PowerShell? PowerShell, like we heard, there is a command line shell and it's a scripting language. So what can we do with PowerShell? We can actually use PowerShell to automate a lot of stuff, not just in our Windows server. We can actually use it as well as automating stuff in Azure, M365, and all of that. And if you're looking at PowerShell, right, most times you'll see people running away from PowerShell because they feel it's more of code, right? And I always tell people, you don't need to be a programmer to know how to use PowerShell, because all you just need to do is, if you know how to speak English, that's the right word I would tell them, right? If you know how to speak English and understand English, you should be able to use PowerShell, because PowerShell is just like, hey, come here, get me this, do this for me. So if you're using PowerShell, PowerShell works as a verb noun, right? Now I'm going to explain what I mean by verb noun, right? If you want to do something with PowerShell, you know, verbs are action words, and then we have the noun as objects, right? You would have to tell PowerShell, do this for me on this particular object, right? So if I just created a user, right? The user is an object. If I need to get that user using PowerShell, I will just tell PowerShell, get me that user. So the user is the object. So if you look at PowerShell commands, is just arranged as verb noun or action. If you don't want to use verb, when we were learning about verb, they say action, right? Is an action word. So basically, what you just notice is that the verb there is the action. You get the action, and then you have the noun. I'll show you what PowerShell looks like. So I will go into this server and I will just type PowerShell. So we have PowerShell here. So if you look at, we have the desktop app, and then we have the ISE PowerShell. So you can use any of these, they'll do your work for you. But most times, if probably you want to write stuffs so that you can save them, you would use this, right? That's if you want to save stuffs. But now it's almost like this other one. Let me just type the other one so you see how the interface looks like. So you see it's like this other one, but then you can always adjust what you want from PowerShell. So looking at PowerShell, right? If I want to work on a particular command, right? There are modules that I need to install that would help those parameters that I'll be running for a particular command to function on the computer device or wherever I'm running it. But we won't be going through the modules now. But what I'll be doing, I would use a particular PowerShell that would not require us to use the module for Active Directory because it is going to have everything we need in it. But when you look at PowerShell, right, I said it is action and action now, right? So if you look at a simple command in PowerShell, that's the beauty about this one. Is already giving you the it's already giving you the it's giving you options to pick from, right? It's suggesting possible parameters that you should pick. So now looking at this now, if we look at this command, which is like the basic command, why I'm using this command is if you're starting PowerShell, there are just some very, very basic commands I always tell people to start with. So if you look at this first command I'm typing here, get command, right? So I'm telling PowerShell to get command for me. I'm telling it, do this for me. So if I run this code, let me use this first. I will go to that one. So I just get, so if I run this command now, it's showing me all the commands I can get with PowerShell. I just told it to get me those commands, and that's exactly what it did for me. It went and get me those commands, right? Now, if I'm also using PowerShell, right, there is something else I need to know before I start running other commands. So there are some stuffs I will just explain to you, and then I will show you best practice when you want to run PowerShell, how you can save everything you're doing. And once you're done, you just go and see all the process that you've been going through. You don't have to copy and paste it. To create a text file for you where you can get them, and you can also see your history, right? So, but before then, I want to talk about variables, right, in PowerShell, because the codes I'll be running, you'll probably see the variables there. So, but before I talk about variable, for people that are not programmers, they'll probably be asking, what is a variable, right? A variable is just a container for holding a particular value or a particular object. That's what a variable is in general definition. Now, if we want to apply variable to our real life objects that we see around us, if you're looking at a variable, if you're probably trying to cook at home, right, and you have containers, and those containers, they have pepper, curry, tomatoes, and all of that. You have them in different containers. When you were probably getting them from the market, you got them in nylon or something. You got them wrapped in paper. And when you get them from the market, right, you told the person, I want to get pepper. You saw a lot of pepper, and the person said, oh, yes, how much pepper? You collected the pepper. Now, when you get home, you're not going to be spreading the pepper around your house, right? You have to look for containers, which most of us should have, right? You put your pepper, put your cereal, and all of that. Now, if you want to get pepper, right, sometimes you might not even tell your friend, your daughter, or anybody to, oh, bring me that pepper. You might just say, give me that yellow container. Now, why you're saying, give me that yellow container, is because you know that yellow container has pepper in it, and it is holding pepper. Another way you can just label it, right? You can label the container, even if it's not transparent. It might be white, right? You just label them pepper, onions, curry, and all of that. Now, if you want to get curry, if you even have somebody that is new in your apartment, you just tell the person, I need thyme or curry. What the person will just do is just to look at those containers and say, oh, this container is labeled curry, so I will get curry. Now, what you should also note, right? If you label container that has sugar, salt, you will see that somebody will probably go carry salt, carry sugar and put inside their food thinking it is salt because they are just following what the label is. That's exactly the same thing variable is all about. So I will show you variable. So variables are just containers that are holding a particular value, right? Instead of me using those values directly, I can just put them in a container, and anytime I need that particular value, I just need to call that container. And once I call that container, it will return the variable to me. So let me just give you like a very quick example. When you see $sign, oh, what just happened? Okay, once you see a $sign in PowerShell, it just simply means that that's a variable. So I'm going to say $B. Why is this going? I don't understand it. Okay, let me just close this PowerShell and run it again. I don't know why it is jumping up. So if I open this again, so if I have this sign now and I call it $B equals to 1, right? This is me putting pepper in a container and telling that container that it is B. So I'm putting 1 inside B. I'm saying B is equals to 1. So I can hit enter now, right? I've already told PowerShell that this is. So if I choose to go next and I say $C is equals to 5, what did I just do? I've given another value to C. Now I'm hitting enter. What if I want to, if somebody asks me now, what is 5 plus 1? I don't need to type 1 plus 5 or 5 plus 1. It's very simple for me. I can just come and say B plus $C, right? You can see my answer. So if you type B plus $C in your computer, it will not give you 6 because your variable, yeah?
Solomon, please, can you increase the font of your PowerShell so that people can appreciate it?
Oh,
It might be tiny
okay.
for them to see. Yeah.
Okay. Let me use large.
Thank you.
So let me just see if this have. Okay, let me just go back again and make it more large again. I think this is the largest. I should have fonts. Okay.
Sorry, go to fonts. Yes, go to fonts.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if you can't still see it, just let me know. I can probably increase it more. So if you look at this now, what I just did, I said B, right, is equals to 1. And I'm also saying C is equals to 5. Now I don't have to say what is 5 plus 1. I just need to say what is B plus C. And me typing B plus C, right, it is giving me 6 because PowerShell already know that this is a variable, and each of those variables, they are holding, B is holding 1 and C is holding 5. So that's like one of the best way you can start with PowerShell, understanding variables. Now I spoke about get command. That was very long, right? It brought out a lot of stuff for us. So apart from get command that I just typed, there are a lot of other commands, right? And most of those commands you might see is this. And we have write, we have a lot of other commands. So what this is actually doing for me, remember I said we are using the action and now, right? So you might see some stuffs that you don't really know what it is, probably because of the shorthand that they are using. So these are alias, right? So what this is doing is cleaning up my code, right? But if you want to probably know what an alias is, you can always just do get alias, right? This is another command, and then I can put, so it's telling me that you're clearing host. That means that's what this actually means. So why I'm showing you just some of these basic commands is in case you're seeing stuff that they don't really make sense in terms of the way they are written, probably write and you're trying to know what exactly they are doing, you can always use the get alias. Now, what if you don't know what get alias is? How do you know what get alias is? We have what we call get help. So you see, PowerShell has everything that you can use to help yourself. So if you look at the get help now, with get help, we can actually understand what other commands are doing before we run those commands. So I can say get help, get alias. I think this should show me, oh, it wants me to update my PowerShell. So let me just do the yes for it. Or I don't know if I do know it will give me. I don't just want it to take. Okay. If it will take time, I'll just leave it and go somewhere else. So let me do this. I think this guy can be running directly. So what the get help does, right, is to tell us exactly what a particular command does. So if I say get help here, oh, this might be small for, okay, let me just type the get help and then I'll say get command. So the beauty about using this ISC is just that it will be giving you updates. So now this is what get help is doing. So get help is going to break down this particular command for me so I can understand exactly what this command is all about. So now it's telling me that the name of this command is this. And the next thing it's showing me is the syntax of this command. So we have parameters in PowerShell. So those parameters, they take values. So there are a list of parameters. You can always check them online. So one of those parameters can be name, right? If I'm creating a user, I can say new user. And if I say new user, the next thing I need to tell PowerShell, new, remember we're talking about action and now, right? I need a new user, right? New is the action that PowerShell needs to do, then user. So now I need to start passing the parameters. I'll say, okay, this new user, I need this new user to have name. So what's the value for the name? What do you want the name to be? And I'll say, okay, the name should be Chisom. And PowerShell, I can keep adding more parameters. But what this help command is doing for me, showing me the parameters that I can pass when I run this particular get command that I just did now. That's this get command. So this download, I made a mistake. I would have just said no.
Sorry, Solomon, to cut you. Can you also increase this? I'm sure people will
Yeah,
be finding it difficult to.
yeah. Let me. This should be in view. Okay, this guy is done. Thank
You
God.
just zoom out,
Okay.
zoom it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to zoom it, but this is already done. So this is already showing
Okay.
me the alias, right? What it does, right? You can see the syntax, right? So why I'm showing you this is long I created a user in Active Directory, but how do I know the parameters and how do I know the command to create a new user? At least I can remember that anything that have AD user has to do with user, right? I can use this get command. So I can use this get. Why is this? Let me. I have no idea why this PowerShell is dancing. So let me just open this again. So I can use the get command. Let me see, get command. Right? So now I have this get command. And if I have this get command, I can just tell get command to give me any command that has AD in it, AD user. So I don't know what to use to create my user. I'm just here with you guys. It's long I created user. So I'm trying to know the commands. So you can see get command gave me the list of all the commands. But now I want a specific command. So this method I use, right? Asterisk just simply means all, but asterisk can also be used in different ways. So if I say get command, I just want to show you how the asterisk can work. I can say should give me anything that starts with AD. If I put it behind, is anything that ends with AD. So you can see all the commands that starts with AD. That's what get command is bringing for me. But now I would go through a lot looking for the command I need, right? The command I want to use, I know the command I want to use has to do with AD user. So that's why I can as well just say, get me this command. I need this command that has to do with AD. So let me just type AD user, sorry, right? I can put it like this. So I'm actually saying this command, any command that contains AD user, please bring it, return that command. So now it has returned commands for me. So looking at this command now, I can see verb now, verb now. The first one is get AD user. I don't want to get any user. The next one is telling me get AD user resultant password policy. No, new AD user. Yes, that's what I want. I want to create a new AD user. Now I've gotten the command I want, right? But I don't know the parameters that I need to pass. Which parameters would this command accept? So now I need to look for help, right? So in order to look for help, I can just do get help. Now that I've done get help, I know the command I need, right? So I will just say, please, I need help for AD user. Oh, sorry, this would not work.
Get AD user.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, may
so
get
I
that
want
new
to,
AD user.
yeah. So now it has given me the commands I need for this new user. So if I want to create a new user, remember I showed you some stuff. So I said, look at those names that I'm providing, right? So if you look at this command now, it's telling me that once I type this syntax, get AD user, that the parameter I can pass is the name of the user. And if I'm passing the name of the user, the value needs to be a string. So what is string? Strings are characters, right? We have integers, numbers, then strings are alphanumeric characters. So if I'm to give somebody a name, it has to be alphanumeric or it has to be just alphabet. That's exactly what the string represents here. So if you see the next parameter, you say this parameter, if I'm passing this parameter, it has to be in date time format. So if you don't know date time format, you can go down to check it more on it. So we have account not delegated. You can see this is Boolean. Boolean just simply means it either has to be 1 or 0 that I'll put in that value, or true or false. So true or false, that's Boolean, Boolean. I've called it like 5 names. So Boolean is just it takes two values, right? I'm just explaining this, but most of these things you can just type them on Google and you will get exactly what they do. So if you see Boolean now, it takes two values, and those values can either be a true or it will either be false. That's exactly what the values that this can go with. So if you're using this parameter, it simply means that if you have to pass a value there, you have to either choose yes or no, right? You're not typing yes or no. It can be 0, 1, or true or false. So I don't know if yes or no will work, but I've never used yes or no. So that's what Boolean means. So if you look through, you will just keep seeing all the parameters you can pass and the value that they can take. So, and if you come down here, you can see example, right? You see what you have: a new user, some account, given name, surname, display name. So there are a lot of stuff you can actually add, and those parameters, they are coming from here. So when you want to create a user, for the user we are going to create, I don't need to use all these parameters, right? There are some of these parameters I can always go back and just edit, add, and all of it. So but the long run is that you can use this to know your parameters. You can get example. You can see where the DC you're putting your user in. That's the path and all of that. So instead of wasting more time on all of this, and you can still see related links, right? You can remove the user, you can set the user, you can get the user after creating the user. So that's exactly what this is all about. So what I wanted to show you that you should actually know when you want to start writing any PowerShell command is what I missed, right? So I will type it now. So this is what I believe you should, if you don't probably want to close your PowerShell and start looking for your scripts, or trying to, you've seen when people are trying to copy scripts, everything from the top to the bottom, right, is actually stressful. What did I just type? So sometimes when you're talking and typing, your brain will be doing something else. So as I'm typing this command, I can just hit tab. This is not what I want. So tab, it will complete it for me, but this is what I want. Yeah, so transcript. So what transcript does, it will just create a text file for all the commands that I will start writing after running this code. So if I hit enter now, you can see this transcript has been created in my document, and this is the name, right? So if I come to document now, so this is document, this is the transcript. So this is just it. Now you can look at the way it is now. There's nothing here. So the next thing I need to type when I'm done with if I'm done with writing all my codes and I just need to see what I've been writing, right? I can just write get history. So I'm just showing you some of the basic things you should know when you're starting, while you're going. So you can see these are the commands I've been writing since. If you've been following me through, you'll see I started with this. After I reopened, this was the next one, this was the next one, this was next. So let's just go back here and see what this guy has for us. So you can see this guy already told me this is the next command I wrote. So imagine I started with this transcript. All this stuff would have been documented right from the top. So I would not have issues tracing any particular error I had. So it's still better in terms of writing error, getting errors, because when you're using PowerShell, most times you would find yourself having errors. It's not because you're not good. Sometimes it can be typo, sometimes it's just mistake and all of that. So you can as well just get to copy the errors from here and search for them on the internet. And if probably you don't know what the error, where the error is coming from, you can use that to solve this. So I think I need to be fast now. Let me just go to creating users. And once I just create the users, I will try to change their .local domain so I don't spend more time on this. So let's just move to the users that I want to create. So I have a command here. So I'll create multiple users with this .local. Once I'm done creating the multiple users, the next thing I will do, I will add a new domain. And once I add the new domain, I will then do the replacement of the user domain. So let me get that code here. So this is just basically the code I'll be running. So I'll be copying them and I'll be pasting them so you see exactly what they are doing, right? So I'll paste the first set of code. I will edit them, right? So this code you're seeing here, I would edit them to suit what we want to do. So this is the first code I have here. So why I'm using this code, I had to explain PowerShell, so there's no confusion. So let me just hit enter. I hope this code is correct. Let me just look at it. Okay. Let me just use password. I'm not giving it password. So if I probably had more time, I would have just show you how we can create, like in the automation part where we can create a script. And if you just come in here, you just need to be filling the information after running the script. You don't need to do anything. So that's more like the automation part. So if we look at this, right, this is exactly what I want to do. So I've given.
Solomon, please increase it. We're struggling to see.
Okay,
The
sorry.
notepad.
The notepad, yeah, I'm doing that now. Let me go to fonts and I think I can give this. Oh, too big. Let me come to 24. Okay, yeah, so this is the notepad, right? So I'm trying to install multiple users, right? And remember, this is a variable, right? And this variable is number of users I need. I gave it number of users. I want to create 10 users. And you can see this is user prefix. The user prefix just simply means you will be adding this to any user you're creating, right? And this is the password for all the users. So this domain was, this was .local. I hope so, yeah. So this is the domain, right? So all these are variables. I've said that this is this, this is this, this is this. So what I will do is just to call them in the command that I'll be using. So basically what this particular the command is doing is just converting our password to a secure string. So this command is there in PowerShell. So it's not just this, they have other command that you can use for password in terms of when you're using PowerShell. Sometimes you might want your password to prompt when you're creating a user. If you want the password to prompt, you would have to use the convert to secure string so that if maybe the user is typing the password when they are using the prompt, it should not show the password. So that's basically what it does for us. So now this is just a little bit, you might not start like this. You can just start with just this part, right? Just fill in these values for your users, right? But what this is doing, I'm creating a for loop, right? What the loop does is it starts counting from 0 and starts increasing. And once it gets to 10, it will stop. So, and how is this loop working is because I've already set numbers here, right? So I've already set numbers there, and once this loop goes through to 10, it stops once it's done. So that's exactly what this is doing. So I don't want to like start explaining for loop, right? Because we have different loops. So after setting all of that, now I'm giving another variable, right? And I'm saying this variable is new user. And what are we going to be passing into new user? We'll pass in the user prefix plus 1 plus I is going to be counting from 0, 1. So as it's increasing, this value will be changing. So don't get confused with this loop, right? Because this is something on its own. But I'm just trying to make stuff easy with us. That's why I'm using this loop. But if you look at this here, right, I'm using the new AD user command and I'm using the parameter for name. But now I don't have a name. So where is my name going to be coming from? It's going to be coming from my variable, right? And sorry, that's this is my variable for new users. That's where my name will be coming from. Sam account, given name, all of them will be coming from the variable. So given name just simply means first name. Then we have surname, last name, right? The name is like the full user name itself. Then we have user principal name. So if we look at the user principal name, this user domain, which I've already specified here, I specified the user domain here. So let's just go down. I need to be fast now. So this part now, I need to specify where am I going to be creating this account I want to create now. So that's exactly what I need to do here. How do I get this part? So for me to get this part, I have to come back here. Now, if you look at this place now, you can see we are just seeing this particular OUs. We can't see a lot of other stuffs, right? And if probably this is where I want the user to be created. If I come to properties, right, you can see I'm just seeing 1, 2, 3 tabs here. I can't see more tabs. So if I want to see those more tabs, there's what they call the advanced features. I need to tick it. So once I enabled the advanced features, you can see more folders, containers are showing here. Even this lost and found, which is one of the non-syncing OU in Active Directory, is now showing here. If you probably start using it when we are doing the syncing, you will get to understand why we have this particular lost and found. So, but now I've been able to turn on the advanced features. I'll come to this user OU because this is where I need this account to be created. So if I click on properties now, I can go to attributes. You see we have more now. Once I come to attributes here, you can see what they call distinguished name. Distinguished name is the part where I want this to be stored. And you can see showing the OU users. That's it's starting from the DC itself, then the the domain that we are using, right? And the OU, which is this particular OU, to the user OU, which is starting from top down, how it is arranged, but it's coming from the right to the left side. So this is how this our directory is arranged. So I'm going to pick that part, and then I will just come here and replace this. So if I replace that, yeah, I think everything should be fine. Account. So yeah, so the account, I also enabled it. I can disable the account while creating it. So I would run this and wish for the best after running it. So this is what I would do. I will come here and paste it here. So that's why you see that at this point, this is why you appreciate using this ISC. So I'll just select this, and I can run the script, or I can, if I want to run just this line, I can just put my cursor here and click on this. That means I'll run just this command, but I want to run the whole script that I just wrote. So let's just see what will happen. I'll click on run script. So congrats to me, there was no error. I have my 10 users. So I'll go back here and refresh. So you can see I have 10 users. So you can see where the automation comes in now. So can you imagine me typing or going to the UI 10 times just to be creating users, right? So with PowerShell, I've been able to do that. So now that I've done that, let's just, let me just start with the, just hold on. Okay, yeah, so now I want to start with adding a new domain to this. So if I want to do that, I can come to domain and trust, right? And when I come here, I can go to, sorry, at the top. So I can go to properties and add a new domain, right? So I will add a new domain, but I'm not going to use that one, just to show you different ways we can add it. So I can add ABC of cloud dot cloud. So I've added a new domain and apply. Okay. So I just added a new domain, but what if I want to use my PowerShell? So I made a mistake. I was supposed to show you something. Let me delete that. So I just show you that. So I hope it doesn't show. Apply. Okay. Wait, did I did I just okay, it's fine. So what I want to do, I
You
want to
didn't click
run this.
enter. You didn't click add.
No, I don't want to add it. I just want to
Okay.
run a command at first, so we confirm if we have another UPN, a domain on the tenant. So if we
Okay.
run this,
But I'm even
yeah,
saying this one, you have not added it yet. Good thing you have not added it.
yeah, I just wanted to show me a blank. If I run
Mm-hmm.
this command now, right? Let's this partial. Okay, yeah. So you can see now it's showing me there's no UPN, right? Suffix. So what I want to do now, I want to add it now and run the same command again, so you see what will happen. So I'm going to add that, and I'll just say apply. Okay. So let me run that command again. So you can see now, I can see that I have this added. So now let me just quickly add the .com with this command I have here. So I would just put the command here, and so I can edit it. So this is the command. Now okay, I think I'll just add this domain directly, right? So I'm adding this new domain, right? So this is get AD forest, right? So we have pipelines, right? So if I get something, right? Once I get something, I can choose to do anything with the object I get. So that's where this pipeline is coming. So if I tell PowerShell, get me this object. Now, before PowerShell will say, okay, this is the object, I can tell it, okay, perform this action on this object. So that's where you see this pipeline. So I'm telling it to get me the AD forest, and then after getting the AD forest, I'm now telling it to set AD forest, and this is the UPN suffix I always go to add. Now I'm telling it, once you get me the AD forest, set this UPN suffix to this domain that I have here. So the pipeline is more like immediately I get the item, then I can perform an action on the item using this pipeline. So let me just run this. So I think time is already running. I don't know if I should still continue. I'm already getting message alert. Deji, how many minutes? 15 minutes for. So let me just paste this and see.
Yeah, so you can just
So now I've added this domain. So if I come here now, this should.
can ask questions.
Okay, so you can see we have this domain sitting here. And if I go to this, my Active Directory now, remember these users we created, if I go to their properties, you can see that they are using the .local. But if I click on this drop down, I can see the two domain there. So now to answer the question that we had, right, in the previous session, right, how can we convert all these users to this other domain without doing it one after the other and clicking OK? So that's the question that was asked, right? So we were supposed to use the AD modify, but when MJ checked it, she discovered that it has been depreciated, right? And then we have PowerShell here. PowerShell is for automation, so it's still doing the same job for us. So I would go through this. The next is I want to get my users, right? Let me run this command, right? So I'll just run this command real quick. So if I paste this here, so this particular command, I'm filtering all the users. I'm getting all the AD users, right? So once I get them, I'm sorting the objects based on name, and then I'm using a table, right? So this format table is just going to create a table for me and then show me the output for the users that I'm getting. It will show me their name and their user principal name. So that's what the table is going to do. So the table is, we are filtering all user, right? And you can see that we still got this guest user. It's coming from another OU because we are filtering all user. We are not just filtering user from that OU. And when we filter those users, we want it in a table format, and then we want to see their name and their user principal name. So if we do this now, we can see that these users, they have .local, right? Then we can go to the next step where we can now start writing our command to do the change. So I will just bring this command, edit it real quick, and yeah, so once I run about 2 commands, I'm done. So just one actually. Let me copy this. So let me do this on this. Let me hit enter and let me open this. So before I run that there, let me paste it here so everybody can see it. So this is the command I'm going to be running. I think I should just use wrap. Yeah. So, okay. So this is the command that I will be running. Now remember, this is still a variable, right? Now we are getting the AD user and we are filtering them based on their user principal name, right? And this user principal name, we say should be like local. So we are looking for people with .local principal name, right? So the properties that we are getting from all this whole stuff that we are getting, right? We are putting it into this variable. So we are getting the property of user principal name. The result size, we don't need the result size. That's why we have none. So now the next command we are using is the for each. For each is also like going through every object in this particular variable, right? So we are going through each of them for each, right? We'll go through each of them. Now, as we are going through each of them, we are still passing our pipeline and we are giving it a new variable now. So this new variable is equals to this dollar underscore is a way to scan through objects in a particular variable, or it might not even be a variable. If you're searching through your computer and you're looking for a particular stuff with PowerShell, you can use this dollar underscore sign to search for a particular object in that iteration. So we have dot user principal. So if we are searching through a particular object and we use dot, the dot is just to tell us what property in that object are we looking for, or in that iteration we are looking for. So if I say, oh, I'm searching for something that has the property of user principal name, what should you do with the user principal name? You should replace it. So that's exactly what is happening. So what I'm telling it now is look for the user principal name in this particular variable I have. And when you get that user principal name, if you see that this is what it has, just add this for me, right? And then we're still using the same dollar underscore here and dollar underscore sign. And what we are still doing, we are still sending the pipe. That means if I get this result, send it into this in the next action, right? So after getting this result, what should we do with it? This is what we should do with the results that we're going to get. So we are going to be setting the AD user and user principal name to this variable, which is this. So that's exactly what this command is doing. So I would copy this command and just try to run it on ISC. So with PowerShell, I know some stuff here might look a bit, I know this is not going to work. So let me go back. This command is starting from here because this is where we started the conversation. So I will copy this and so I'll just do this. So now that I've done this, let me just keep this clean. Yeah, you can now try to run this. So yeah, so that is done. So how do we confirm that using PowerShell? We can go and check it, but what we can do, right? We can try to run the same. We can try to run the same command we did earlier. So let me do this. Yeah. So you can see that our users, right? They've changed. So, but there's something we would have still done. We can still do it for a particular OU, right? We can choose to specify the OU that we want to do it in, which I probably just skipped because I'm trying to be in a hurry, right? So what we can do, we can as well specify the OU we want this to happen using the path that we created earlier. So now that we've done this, if we go to check our users, right? Let me go to those users. If we click on this user, now we can see that they are using the new domain that we created. So I would have actually done that for a specific OU, right? But I just wanted to reduce time, but it's something you can as well do. So let me see. Let me just show you the command. So if I copy this, right? So you see it's not anything different, right? But time is, so you can see that I use the search based. So the search based is just going to be where the location you should target when it is performing this action. So that's exactly what this is doing. So for this, you remember how I got the distinguished name? So I will just get that distinguished name and paste it here. So if I do that, it will not affect other users in another OU. So imagine probably we have two companies, right? And they're using OU to separate the domains for each of those companies. Maybe they have is one person that have the company. If we have users working in this OU for maybe Facebook and we have another user for Microsoft, right? And we are the owner of both companies. We can use this to say, okay, target this OU, change it to Microsoft.com, but the other OU will still remain the same way it is. So with this now, I think we've been able to answer the question from the last training, and I've been able to at least just show you around PowerShell. You don't need to understand a lot now. Just start with creating maybe users, get command, do get your transcript. With that, you will start building on your scripting level. So yeah, I would pause now, and yeah, Deji, you can now take over from me. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Solomon. That was very fantastic. We were actually able to cover a lot, from working on last week questions to going into PowerShell and then breaking it down, explaining it in a layman's language. So that's a very good one. Thank you, Solomon. I believe we all have gotten a lot from this session, and I understand that we may have a lot of questions, most especially with respect to PowerShell. PowerShell is a scripting language on its own, but it is very, very easy to learn. Just like Solomon mentioned, it's very easy to learn. And one other good thing is, if you're running any scripts on Microsoft tools, like maybe the server, Windows Server, or against Office 365 or Azure, there are Microsoft documentation for all this. I mean, all the commands, everything you want to run, it is all written in English language that you can easily understand. So, with continuous practice, you will definitely get very used to PowerShell.